Hello, inner shifters. How you doing? Your host, Sophia here. Let's dive in. This one's going to feel like a deep breath of fresh air. Today, we're talking about how positive thinking shapes your reality, not just in poetic terms, but in a real, grounded, measurable, life-altering way. I want you to imagine we're having coffee, maybe curled up on the couch or walking in the park. No pressure, no bullet points. Just two people wondering how the way we think could change the way we live. And let me tell you, it absolutely can. So first, let me ask you something you don't have to answer out loud. Just think about it. When you woke up this morning, before the phone, before the to-do list, what was the first feeling you had? Did it come with a thought like, another day, here we go again, or something like, let's see what this day has for me? That little flicker, that moment of mindset, starts shaping the lens through which you see the entire day. I had a friend named Mateo, a brilliant artist who went through a really rough chapter a few years back. He was dealing with job uncertainty, feeling invisible in his creative work, and emotionally just flat. He'd tell me, it's not that I'm negative, it's just that being hopeful feels kind of naive right now. Oh, and honestly, that made sense. Life does hit hard. But we started this tiny experiment, so small it felt almost silly. Every morning before he even got out of bed, he would say one good thing about the day ahead. Didn't matter what it was, maybe it was the taste of coffee, the fact that it wasn't raining, or the hope that someone might smile at him on the train. And something wild happened. Slowly, his world started to shift. It wasn't magic. It was mindset. And neuroscience has a lot to say about that. See, the brain is wired with a little filter called the reticular activating system. Think of it like a bouncer at the front of a club that decides what information gets in. When you start focusing on the good, the potential, the things you're grateful for, even if they're tiny, you're literally training your brain to look for more of it. That's how your reality starts to reshape itself. Not because the world changed, but because your lens did. There's an amazing study from the University of Pennsylvania, led by Dr. Martin Seligman, often called the father of positive psychology, showing that people who practiced optimism and reframed setbacks reported significantly lower rates of depression, better physical health, and higher success in work and relationships. This isn't about fake positivity. This is about resilient perspective. Let me tell you another story. My friend Clara was one of those perpetually stressed people. Super smart, super capable, but she lived on the edge of overwhelm. And her inner dialogue's brutal. You're falling behind. Everyone's doing better than you. You're not enough. That voice wasn't true, but it was loud. And it was coloring everything. So she started doing something called cognitive reappraisal, which is just a fancy term for not taking your first thought as gospel. She'd hear herself thinking, I'm failing, and she'd pause and go, wait, is that actually true, or am I just scared? That pause, that shift, it saved her. Studies in Frontiers in Psychology show that people who practice positive cognitive reframing have lower cortisol levels, that's the stress hormone, and show stronger activation in the brain's prefrontal cortex, which handles emotional regulation. Translation, your thoughts can either start a stress cascade or stop it in its tracks. That's power. And here's what no one tells you. Positive thinking isn't about ignoring pain or pretending everything's fine. It's about making a choice. A choice to create space between the event and your interpretation of it. Between the fear and the possibility. And in that space, that's where transformation lives. I had this conversation once with a guy named Eli who had gone through a massive career setback. Lost his job, got ghosted by some close friends, and found himself spiraling into, I'll never recover from this. And one day, he paused and asked himself something radical. What if this isn't a breakdown? What if it's a redirect? That reframe opened a door. He started applying for jobs not just out of desperation, but from curiosity. What else could he be good at? A year later, he was in a new role that made him feel more alive than ever. But the real shift wasn't the job. It was the thought that maybe things are falling into place, not falling apart. And that's what positive thinking really is. It's not rainbows and unicorns, it's choice. It's resilience in real time. It's the ability to say, yes, this is hard, but I'm going to believe something good can still come from it. That belief, that's not delusion. That's fuel. In fact, a study published in Health Psychology found that people with a more optimistic outlook had stronger immune responses to illness. Think about that. Just believing that things will get better helps your body fight harder. Hope is biology, and it's contagious too. People who engage in positive thinking tend to have better social networks because optimism is magnetic. We're drawn to people who leave us feeling more alive. And when you think positively, you're not just uplifting yourself, you're elevating everyone you touch. My friend Sophia once said, "Every thought I feed becomes the tone of my life." And that stuck with me. Because our thoughts don't just live in our heads, they shape our choices, our posture, our energy, the way we look at the world. When you believe you're resilient, you handle setbacks differently. When you believe you're capable, you take the risk. When you believe that good is possible, even if you're not sure how or when, you become someone who moves forward instead of folding in. And listen, this doesn't mean you'll never feel discouraged. It doesn't mean you won't have bad days or moments where fear gets loud. But when positive thinking becomes a practice, a habit, a reflex, you recover faster. You don't spiral as far. You don't get stuck. You catch yourself and say, wait a minute, what else could be true here? And that's the moment the story starts to change. You have that power right now. Even if life's chaotic, even if you're tired, even if everything feels uncertain, you still get to choose your lens. You still get to tell yourself a story that helps you rise instead of shrink. And maybe it starts small. Maybe it starts with a simple sentence you say in the mirror, "I'm doing my best and that's enough." Or, "I don't know what's next, but I trust I'll handle it." Or even just, "Today I choose hope." Whatever version works for you, start there. Say it until it becomes familiar, until it becomes reflex. Because you are the narrator of your own experience, and when the narration gets lighter, stronger, braver, the entire plot begins to shift. Now let's talk about something truly incredible, how positive thinking boosts physical health. Not just in a vague, good vibes only way, but biologically, chemically, physiologically. Your thoughts aren't just passing clouds, they have ripple effects that reach every inch of your body down to your cells. And when you start tapping into that power, you're not just changing your mood, you're changing your health. I had a friend, let's call him Leo, who went through a health scare a few years ago. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to shift his whole world. Doctors' visits, tests, that quiet fear always humming beneath the surface. For a while, he spiraled. Felt like his body had betrayed him. And honestly, that's such a human response. But something shifted when his therapist asked him a simple question. What story are you telling yourself about your body? At first, he was confused. A story, it's just the facts. But over time, he began to see that he was carrying a narrative. My body is weak. I'm broken. I have no control. And that story, it was feeding stress, tension, even pain. So he started rewriting it. Not with denial, but with choice. He began speaking to himself more gently. My body is healing. I'm doing what I can. I trust the process. Little phrases at first. But over time, his blood pressure dropped. His sleep improved. Even his digestion regulated. Not because the problem disappeared, but because his nervous system stopped living in survival mode. And that's the bridge between thought and body. The science behind this is staggering. Take optimism, for example. A 2019 study published in JAMA Network Open tracked over 70,000 people and found that those with higher optimism levels had a significantly longer lifespan and were less likely to develop cardiovascular disease. Other studies from Harvard and the Mayo Clinic link positivity to better immune response, lower inflammation, and faster recovery after surgery or illness. We're talking about measurable biological change driven by mindset. It comes down to stress chemistry. When you're stuck in cycles of fear, pessimism, or hopelessness, your body produces more cortisol and adrenaline. These aren't bad hormones, they help in emergencies, but chronic exposure can raise your blood pressure, weaken your immune system, and increase inflammation. Basically, your body thinks it's under attack all the time. But when you think hopeful thoughts, when you picture healing, safety, connection, your body responds by releasing oxytocin, endorphins, serotonin. These aren't just happy chemicals. They lower stress, ease pain, reduce inflammation, and trigger healing processes. In other words, your body eavesdrops on your mind and it takes notes. Sophia, a friend of mine who recovered from long COVID, swore by this principle. She still had symptoms here and there, but what changed everything for her was her mental language. Instead of "this will never end," she began saying, "every day my body remembers how to heal." She visualized her cells regenerating, her breath deepening, her energy returning. And no, she didn't heal overnight, but the way she spoke to herself reduced her panic. Less panic meant better sleep. Better sleep meant more energy. More energy meant she could move her body again. Healing isn't linear, but thinking positively helped her climb that slope instead of sliding down it. And I'll be honest, it takes practice, especially if your thoughts tend toward anxiety or self-doubt. But you don't have to become a monk or meditate for hours a day. You just have to notice, what's the narrative I'm feeding my body today? Because every thought you think is a little chemical signal. And those signals stack up. One of my favorite insights comes from Dr. Joe Dispenza, who often says, "Where you place your attention is where you place your energy." That means if you're constantly focusing on pain, fear, or limitation, your body tunes itself to that channel. But when you focus on gratitude, potential, and healing, even for a few minutes a day, you start broadcasting a different signal. And your body hears it. This isn't about being fake or ignoring real struggles. It's about aligning your thoughts with what you want to happen, not just what you fear will. It's about becoming an ally to your own body. So the next time you're feeling off, exhausted, or even just disconnected, pause. Put your hand on your heart and say something kind, something real. Maybe it's "I'm trying and that matters," or "my body knows how to heal," or even just "I'm safe right now." And try it for a week, not just once, but daily. And then listen. Listen to how your body starts to respond with just a little more ease, a little more breath, a little more strength. So you're already capable of more healing than you know. And positive thinking isn't a magic wand, but it is a powerful tool. Use it like the act of self-care it is. Speak kindly to your body and watch what it gives back. Let's explore how positive thinking builds mental resilience, not as some fluffy idea, but as a grounded, soul-deep strength that helps you bend without breaking when life inevitably throws you off course. Resilience isn't about having it all together. It's about what you do when things fall apart. And positive thinking, it's not just putting on a smile, it's deciding to believe even when things are hard that you can get through this, you can learn from this, you can find your way back. That belief, it changes everything. So let me tell you about my friend Eli. He went through what he described as a total unraveling a few years ago, job loss, a breakup, and the kind of hollowed out days that feel like they'll never end. At one point, he said to me, "It's like life knocked the breath out of me and I forgot how to inhale." I still get goosebumps remembering that line. But hear what Eli did next. Not overnight, not easily, but intentionally. He started looking for one good thing in each day. Not because it erased the pain, but because it gave him something to hold on to. A moment of sunlight, a warm meal, a kind text. He called it his thread of gold, and he followed that thread out of the dark. That's what positive thinking does in hard times. It doesn't ignore the storm, it helps you navigate through it. It says this is hard, but it's not the end. This hurts, but I'm still here. And neuroscience completely backs this up. The American Psychological Association has found that optimistic thinking patterns are strongly correlated with greater emotional recovery after trauma, higher life satisfaction, and even more persistence during difficulty. Why? Because the brain, when it believes in possibility, stays flexible. It stays open to action. It keeps seeking solutions. There's this brilliant idea in psychology called explanatory style, basically, how you explain setbacks to yourself. Optimists see failure as temporary, specific, and changeable. Pessimists tend to view it as permanent, pervasive, and personal. You can guess which mindset leads to growth and which one builds walls. I had a friend named Clara who was rejected from her dream grad program 3 years in a row. The first year, she spiraled. The second year, she barely even tried. But the third year, something shifted. She still wanted it, but she also began to believe, even if it doesn't happen, I will still be okay. I will find my path. That calmness, that inner knowing, that's resilience. That's not fragile hope. That's fortified trust in yourself. And get this, resilience isn't some trait you're born with. It's a skill you build, a muscle you stretch. Every time you choose to see a setback as a setup, every time you try again, that's mental training. Studies from the University of Pennsylvania's Positive Psychology Center show that students trained in positive reframing, gratitude, and future vision not only had lower anxiety, but outperformed their peers under pressure. That means optimism isn't weakness. It's fuel for grit. Even your nervous system changes with positivity. Practices like mindful self-talk, visualizing success, and affirmations can actually shift your body's stress response from fight or flight to rest and repair. One breath, one hopeful thought, one reframe, and suddenly your whole body gets the message. You've got this. Sophia, another friend I adore, had to rebuild her life after leaving a toxic situation. Financial instability, uncertainty, loneliness, it was all there. But she created this mantra that kept her anchored. I'm not starting over, I'm starting ahead with wisdom. That reframe changed everything. Instead of fear, she felt forward motion. Instead of shame, she felt sovereignty. And every week, things got better. Because positive thinking gave her mental traction. You don't have to get it right all the time. A positive thinking isn't perfection. It's the intention to stay open, to believe in your ability to endure and evolve. It says, even if I don't know the how, I believe in the why. Even if I fall, I believe I can rise. So if life's heavy right now, if you're tired, unsure, or hurting, I just want to tell you this. Your belief in something better isn't naive. It's your strength, it's your compass. And every time you think something just a little brighter, every time you soften your inner voice, every time you say, this might grow me, you are building resilience right down to your core. I'm not talking about being overly cheerful or pretending everything's fine when it's not. I'm talking about how your internal lens, your way of seeing people, interpreting moments, and handling your own emotional landscape can completely transform the way you connect with others. It's how your mindset becomes your social magnet. I want you to think about someone in your life who makes you feel lighter the second they walk into a room. Not because they're loud or over the top, but because they radiate something calm, presence, hope. They make you feel seen, heard, valued. That energy, that's the ripple effect of a positive internal world. It's not performative. It's rooted in how they think, how they perceive, how they choose to interpret the people and situations around them. My friend Clara is one of those people. Even when her life is chaotic, and trust me, she's had her share of chaos, she still shows up to conversations open, curious, hopeful. Not in a toxic positivity kind of way, but in a way that says, even if things are messy, there's still beauty here. And when you talk to her, you feel like the best version of yourself. And you know why? Because her internal dialogue is kind. She assumes the best in others. She sees potential over problems. And you feel that. So if you ever feel stuck, scattered, or burnt out, pause. Ask yourself, what am I telling myself about this task? About me, about my capacity? If your thoughts aren't helping, rewrite them. Reclaim them, let your mind become your co-creator instead of your critic. You don't need to push harder. You just need thoughts that pull you forward. I thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, and do all those lovely things you wonderful people do. I'll see you next time.